When I came of age, I was treated like a toy for social climbing. A gift for Larry, the biggest tycoon in Hong Kong. The night I found out I was unexpectedly pregnant, I used every trick in the book to get him all hot and bothered before carefully asking, "Honey, what would you do if someone secretly had your baby?" Larry stubbed out his post-sex cigarette, his expression cold. The baby's birthday would be her mother's death day. I knew it. While Larry was out of the country, I took my baby and disappeared without a trace. 6 months later, very pregnant, I snuck into a friend's bachelorette party. I hadn't been with a man in ages, and I was practically drooling over the male models when Larry walked in, his face a blank mask. "Kathy. In all the years we've been married, when have I ever left you wanting? Ordering this many men, are you overestimating yourself, or just trying to humiliate me?" I was late for the kept women get together. The group of stunningly beautiful women all rolled their eyes at me. "This is a kept women's party. What's a big shot like you doing here with us?" I didn't say anything, just tossed my purse onto the coffee table and collapsed onto the sofa. "You guys don't get it. I'd rather be a kept woman. They only have to wait for their sugar daddies to show up occasionally. Me? I have to be by his side day and night. They say being close to a king is like being next to a tiger. They have no idea how miserable I am." "Did your Mr. Johnson wear you out again?" someone asked, leaning in gossiping. "He's been in Italy for 2 weeks. You must have had a rough night last night, huh? But hey, the fact that you can even leave the house and annoy us. Is Mr. Johnson losing his touch, or have you gotten tougher?" I shot up, my eyes wide. How could Larry possibly be losing his touch? I wasn't feeling well, I had to beg him to let me off the hook. No matter what, I would defend Larry's reputation to the death. After all, if word got out that Mr. Johnson couldn't perform, he'd probably chop me up and feed me to the sharks. "How did you beg him?" "Teach us your ways, Kathy." Just as I was being swarmed by the women, my phone rang. The name Larry popped up. Everyone went silent in an instant. I cleared my throat, instinctively straightened up, and answered the phone. "Where are you?" Just 2 simple words, but the air seemed to freeze. I couldn't help but rub my cold arms. "Out for afternoon tea." I answered quietly. "Be outside in 10 minutes." He hung up. Everyone was still holding their breath, not daring to make a sound. After a while, I couldn't take it anymore. "Why is everyone so quiet? Kathy, is Mr. Johnson always this cold and scary in bed? He just gives off this vibe like he wouldn't even touch a woman. Do you guys, dirty talk?" My ears started to burn. I felt fidgety and couldn't sit still. Larry was nothing like that in bed. He loved tearing my nightgowns and stockings. He liked to blindfold me with his tie or tie up my wrists. Sometimes he'd even choke me a little, pushing me to the edge of ecstasy right as I was about to pass out. And as for dirty talk, I really didn't want to get into it. "Kathy, get on top. I spend a fortune on you. Don't tell me you're tired after a few moves. You know I like it when you're a little wild, so." A firm slap landed on my butt. "Don't think about slacking off. Higher, Kathy." Ugh, I couldn't help but cover my face. There was even more embarrassing stuff, but I couldn't let my mind go there. Otherwise, who knows what kind of fantasies these women would cook up. Luckily, Larry's car had arrived. I grabbed my purse, my face flushed, and made a run for it. As I rushed through the golden revolving doors, my heel caught. A man walking by steadied me with a hand. I thanked him without looking up and hurried outside. I didn't see the handsome young man with the expensive watch on his wrist. He stood there, watching me walk away for a long time. Larry wasn't in the car. I breathed a sigh of relief, took out a compact mirror, and checked my makeup. The woman in the mirror was gorgeous, with perfect skin and delicate features. But for a moment, I felt a strange sense of detachment. Back when the Brown family was on the brink of collapse, all the eligible girls were pushed out to save the family name, offered up like sacrifices. But it was a drop in the bucket. So the family set its sights on Larry. Unfortunately, he wasn't interested in any of them. With that plan failing, the Brown family was about to go under. That's when my biological father finally remembered me, his illegitimate daughter who was never good enough to be seen. He brought me back to the Brown estate, trained me for 3 months, and then handed me over to Larry. Unexpectedly, he kept me. That night, our bodies intertwined, a tangle of limbs and passion. Larry seemed very pleased with me, and in a moment of satisfaction, he granted me one wish. Following the Brown family's instructions, I asked for his help. He agreed without a second thought. As Larry fell into a deep sleep beside me, I secretly shed a single tear. Not long before, someone had kissed me tenderly and whispered, "Kathy, with a face like yours, it's like hiding a treasure. I always feel uneasy. With my background, I'm afraid I can't protect you." His words turned out to be a prophecy. When the Brown family forcibly took me away, Edward chased after the car until he collapsed from exhaustion. And in the car, I didn't even dare to cry. I pulled my thoughts back to the present and closed the mirror. It all felt like yesterday, but 4 years had already passed. I heard Edward was doing very well for himself now. That brought me some comfort. And me? I had shocked everyone by marrying Larry. That chapter of my life was long closed. The car stopped, and the driver opened the door for me. As I got out, I saw a man being dragged away by 2 bodyguards, his arms pinned behind him. A maid followed, washing the ground with a hose. I could faintly see stains of blood. My heart trembled, and I found myself walking even more cautiously. I entered the main house, but Larry was nowhere to be seen. A maid whispered, "Sir is in the study upstairs." She gave me a sympathetic look. He was in a terrible mood just now. "Be careful, ma'am." I took a deep breath, clenching my fists. When I pushed open the study door, I saw Larry immediately. He was sitting in an armchair by the floor-to-ceiling window. A long ash had formed on the cigarette between his fingers. I put down my purse and walked over quietly. Larry didn't even look up. He just flicked the ash off his cigarette. I swallowed nervously and went to him, straddling his lap obediently. "Honey." He moved his cigarette hand away from me and leaned over to put it out. Only then did he look up at me, asking in a flat voice, "Did you have fun today?" "It was okay," I said, wrapping my arms around his neck and leaning in to kiss his chin. But Larry stopped me, his fingertips pressing against my jaw. His gaze fell to the brooch on my chest and froze. It was one of my favorites, a little fish playing among lotus leaves. "What's wrong?" I glanced down at the brooch, confused. The next second, Larry suddenly ripped it off and threw it in the trash. "It's ugly. Get rid of it." I didn't understand, but I nodded obediently. "Okay, whatever you say." Larry held my chin, his eyes impossibly deep. I couldn't read a single emotion in them. "Who did you see today?" "Just the usual crowd, Ava and the girls." His long fingers slid from my jaw down to the intricate pattern on my collar, his fingertips brushing against the thin fabric. "No one else?" His touch sent a shiver through me. I shook my head, dazed. "No." Larry suddenly pushed me off him. He stood up. His face was cold as he loosened his tie and unbuttoned his shirt. Finally, he slowly unbuckled his belt. My calves started to cramp. I swallowed nervously. "Honey, I'm a little hungry." Larry pulled the belt from his pants and tossed it on the sofa. He gave me an indifferent look. "Take off your clothes." "Honey." "Take them off." His voice dropped an inch. "Kathy, I want you now." As the last bit of daylight faded, Larry still wouldn't let me go. The box of ultra thins on the nightstand was empty. He tossed it aside and looked down at me. His large, well-defined hands tangled in my thick, damp hair, pulling hard enough to make my scalp ache. I couldn't help but bite my lip. My wet lashes trembled. I was about to whisper a plea. But Larry seemed to be in a very bad mood tonight. He was rough, without a shred of tenderness. And for the first time, he broke his own rule and didn't use a condom. It was a completely different sensation than before. When Larry kissed me, his eyes were filled with a deep, dark desire. And I was completely swept away by passion. I tilted my head back to kiss him, calling him honey. Over and over. At the very end, Larry held my sweaty body tightly in his arms. His heart was beating fast. His hard muscles pressed against me, causing a slight ache. But for some reason, I really liked the feeling. He was holding me so tight. It felt like he was saying he liked me a little. But I quickly forced myself back to reality. I'll go get the morning after pill tomorrow, I promise. Larry's hand, which had been stroking my back, paused for a moment. For some reason, I felt his gaze turn cold again. I'll have my assistant, Adam, bring the medicine over. My eyelashes slowly lowered. He was so damn cautious. I swallowed the lump of bitterness in my throat. Okay. Larry pushed me away and got out of bed. I have something to do. I won't be back tonight. You go ahead and sleep. I watched him shower, change into clean clothes, and leave. Lying alone in the huge bed, I couldn't fall asleep. My lower belly still felt full, as if he were still inside me. I raised my hand and gently stroked my stomach, a bitter smile on my face. I didn't know what Larry was busy with, but I didn't see him for a whole month. Remembering how bad his mood was that day, I privately asked a maid what the man who was dragged away had done. The maid whispered cautiously. It wasn't really a big deal. He was just unlucky enough to run into Mr. Johnson when he was in a bad mood, so he got punished severely. My heart sank. In all our years of marriage, this was the first time I'd seen Larry so furious. I wanted to know why, but I was also afraid of discovering a truth I couldn't handle. In the end, I chickened out and buried my head in the sand. My best friend, Claire, suddenly needed to see me about something. It was the first time she'd ever asked me for a favor, so of course, I couldn't say no. Before leaving, I thought I should probably let Larry know. But I couldn't reach him on his phone. I had to call his executive assistant, Peter, and ask him to pass on the message. Then I had the driver take me to the old part of town. The familiar yet run-down streetscape appeared before my eyes, and it felt like a lifetime ago. I stood there for a good while, slowly coming back to my senses. Claire came to pick me up and take me to a coffee shop. We happened to pass by the apartment I used to live in. Kathy, want to go in and take a look? Isn't this place supposed to be torn down? It is, but someone bought it last year, so the demolition's been put on hold. A pang of emotion hit me. My mom and I lived in this building for 9 years, just the two of us. Then, Edward came into our lives. There was an old water tank in the courtyard. He bought some small fish and water lilies to put in it. In the summer, we'd sit by the tank to cool off, watching the fish swim among the lotus leaves. As we watched, I don't know who made the first move, but we ended up kissing. My mind drifted for a moment, then quickly cleared. Let's not go in. I turned around and pulled Claire away. But the door behind us suddenly opened. Kathy. After 4 years, Edward's voice suddenly reached me. Long time no see. My feet felt like they were nailed to the ground. I couldn't move. Claire quietly slipped away. Edward, dressed in an expensive shirt and trousers, walked up to me. Time had made him look much more mature and composed. He used to work 3 jobs just to buy me a cheap necklace. Now, his watch alone was worth nearly 8 figures. I always knew he had it in him to get to where he is today. I was genuinely happy for him. But the sun was a bit too bright. I shielded my eyes with my hand before I spoke. Long time no see, Edward. He looked at me, smiling gently, but his eyes were a little red. Want to come in and take a look? I had it redecorated. It's just like it was. I shook my head before he could finish. I have to go. Kathy. He frowned slightly and stepped forward, grabbing my wrist. I immediately pulled away and took a few steps back. I'm married, Edward. I know. You were forced into it. The Brown family sold you. They don't see you as a person. And Larry doesn't treat you well. I raised my voice, cutting him off. He treats me very well. Kathy. Edward looked at me with a pained expression. You don't have to put on a brave face for me. I held back the sting in my eyes and looked at him calmly. He really does treat me well. He doesn't hit me or yell at me. He spends money on me like it's nothing. He even took over the bottomless pit that is the Brown family. He keeps me in the lap of luxury. If I so much as glance at a piece of clothing or jewelry, it's guaranteed to be in front of me the next day. Even when Mrs. Brown gave me a cold look, Larry put the fear of God in her. Although he's unpredictable and has a cold, hard-to-read personality, and his needs in bed can be overwhelming and exhausting at times, he's never mistreated me in any way. Kathy, are you blaming me for not being good enough back then? I sighed and shook my head. It just wasn't meant to be. Kathy, I don't believe in fate. I just know we were truly in love. You love me, you don't love Larry at all. But he's my husband. I frowned slightly and turned to leave. Don't use other people to set things up like this again. Kathy. Edward blocked my path again. I saw you wearing a brooch with a fish and lotus leaves. I knew you hadn't forgotten our past. I froze for a second, suddenly angry at myself for being so careless and oblivious. At the time, I just thought the little fish was cute and bought it on a whim. I completely forgot about the deeper meaning. Luckily, Larry didn't know. I couldn't help but feel a wave of fear. I wore the brooch a few times, didn't like it, and threw it away. He looked stunned, then gave a sad smile after a moment. I don't believe you. Believe it or not. I looked at Edward. I've moved on. You should too. With that, I turned and walked towards the end of the alley. Edward stood there, not following me this time. I let out a sigh of relief and quickened my pace. But as I reached the end of the alley, I suddenly stopped. A Rolls-Royce was parked right there. The back window was halfway down. I immediately saw Larry, dressed in a black business suit, his face grim. In an instant, a cold sweat drenched my back. A million thoughts raced through my mind. If Larry found out what just happened, even if I was innocent and had no idea, would he be so enraged that he'd want to strangle me with his own hands? I got into the car, my heart pounding with fear. I forced a big smile and wrapped my arm around his. Honey, what are you doing here to pick me up? Where's your friend? Larry looked at me calmly. I feigned annoyance. She had a family emergency and bailed on me. I'm so mad. Is that so? He took off his glasses and tossed them into the storage compartment. I immediately climbed onto his lap obediently, purring in a soft voice. You haven't been home in over a month. Are you seeing someone else? A little playful jealousy can be a turn-on. Most of the time, Larry falls for this act. This time, it seemed to work too. Larry reached out and pressed the button to raise the partition. I couldn't help but bite my lip and shift my body slightly on top of him. His thigh muscles were so hard, it was a little uncomfortable. And that other part, I snuck a peek. It was already looking intimidating. What, you miss it? Larry grabbed my waist. So desperate you're trying to seduce me in the car? I'm not. No? Then why are you squirming? It's too hard, it's digging into me. Kathy. Larry slowly pulled down the shoulder strap of my dress. My cheeks grew hotter. The window's still open. I whispered. My voice suddenly caught. Larry glanced to the side. Outside the window, Edward's lonely figure stood not far away. My heart jumped into my throat. A cold sweat broke out all over my body. Larry's lips curled into a smirk. He leaned in and nibbled on my earlobe. Afraid someone will see? His hand slipped under my dress. The thin fabric of my top stretched slightly as his fingers pushed against it. I let out a low, humiliated sob. I didn't dare lift my eyes to look outside. Thankfully, Larry pressed a button and the window rolled up. Just as it closed completely, he suddenly pulled his hand away and leaned back against the seat. His eyes were icy, his voice like frost. "Kathy, take off your dress." I trembled and bit my lip. "The driver's still here." "So what?" A cruel smile played on his lips. "Take it off. I want you now." I was a bit stunned. I slowly lowered my eyes and reached for the zipper on the side of my dress. I felt a surge of hurt, but I didn't dare show it. Even though Larry was cold and hard to read, and everyone around him was afraid of him, after all these years together, I had almost forgotten my initial fear of him. I even dared to be playful and whiny with him sometimes. In the past, if I acted this shy and hesitant, he would have just teased me a bit, never forced me. But today, I couldn't help but look up at him. Larry's face was still expressionless. The emotion in his eyes was faint. I couldn't tell if he was happy or angry, but it was somehow more terrifying than when he was furious. I unzipped my dress little by little, then slowly pulled down the straps. The air conditioning in the car was on full blast, and I instinctively hugged my bare arms. "Feeling wronged?" Larry suddenly spoke. I didn't look up, but my eyes stung, and tears almost fell. "Honey, can we please go home?" "I'll do whatever you want, I just don't want to do it in the car." Maybe it was because my fragile pride hadn't been completely crushed yet. Maybe it was because I had just seen Edward. Whatever the reason, he was someone I had once loved, my unforgettable first love. My emotions were inevitably affected by him, even though I had long since moved on from him and that past. "But I want to." Larry suddenly grabbed my chin, forcing me to look up. "Kathy, have you forgotten? I told you from the very beginning. Whenever I want it, you have to give it to me." There was no emotion on his face, as calm as a deep lake. His eyes, looking at me, were also devoid of warmth. His voice was even, without any fluctuation. But every word seemed to be steeped in an endless chill, sending a shiver down my spine. Yes, I knew from the beginning. I was just a beautiful plaything, an object to make him happy and comfortable. I didn't dare say anything more. My nose stung, and my eyes burned as if pricked by needles. But I couldn't dwell on that. I just kept my head down, stripped off my clothes, and with trembling hands, started to unbuckle his belt. Outside the car window, dark clouds had gathered without me noticing. When the rain started to fall, the Rolls-Royce felt like a steady arc on the sea. I bit my lip, tears falling from my eyelashes. I raised my hand to cover my head, which was throbbing slightly from being bumped during our movements. I wanted to cry, but I didn't dare. I don't know where all this anger was coming from in Larry. He was like a completely different person. He was rough and forceful. Several times, I thought my body was going to be torn apart. But he didn't stop, and I didn't dare to speak. "Why didn't you say anything when you got hurt?" Larry suddenly stopped. He pulled my hand away and gently touched the top of my head. "You're usually so good at being playful, aren't you? Why are you so quiet today?" His tone was far from friendly. But as he yelled at me like this, the pent-up frustration in my heart seemed to burst out all at once. "Do I dare? You're gone for a month without a single phone call. And the moment we meet, you're yelling at me." I slowly buried my face in his shoulder, tears silently streaming down my cheeks. "How am I supposed to know what you're thinking, what you want to do? Maybe you're tired of me, maybe you want a divorce. Kathy, you've really gotten bold, haven't you? Quite the talent for turning the tables." The rain beat fiercely against the car window, shattering into a million tiny splashes, just like my broken moans from earlier. The car was parked for a long time. The rain had long since stopped. Finally, Larry wrapped me in his suit jacket and carried me out of the car. The maids had all tactfully disappeared. Larry carried me straight to the bathroom. Things were always a bit cramped in the car. He much preferred to have his way with me in bed. Just as I was about to lose consciousness, Larry suddenly gripped my sweaty fingers tightly. "Kathy, are you hiding anything from me?" I subconsciously shook my head. When the Brown family took me away back then, Charles Brown had warned me sternly. "Cut ties with that broke ex-boyfriend of yours completely. If Larry finds out about your past with him, Kathy, you know how miserable his fate will be." Of course, I knew. Larry was famous for not tolerating any deceit. Even though Edward was successful now, his foundation was still weak. If Larry found out about our past, if he knew we met today. Suddenly, the image of that bloody, mangled man I saw at the villa flashed through my mind. A chill ran down my spine, but I forced myself to remain calm. "Why are you suddenly asking that? Don't you know everything about me?" I lay beneath him, looking up at him obediently, my gaze unwavering. Larry slowly lowered his head. A warm, wet kiss landed on my lips. "Your birthday is next week. What do you want for a present?" A wave of relief washed over me. I responded to his kiss even more tenderly. "Honey, just being with you is enough. I don't need anything. You haven't been home for a month. I missed you so much." His breathing suddenly became ragged. Sometimes, Larry was easy to please. At least, by the end of that night, I think I had successfully won him over. When I woke up the next morning, I was still in his arms. He seemed to be in a good mood, pulling me into another round of passionate lovemaking, which made him late for work. Around noon, Claire called. "Kathy, I'm so sorry. I just couldn't bear it." Edward kept begging me, and my heart softened, so I agreed. "You're not mad at me, are you, Kathy? After all, you were so in love with him back then. You must have wanted to see him too, right?" I let out a slow breath, feeling an indescribable mix of emotions. If I weren't married now, maybe Edward and I would still have a chance. But I am married. Claire couldn't be ignorant of what that meant. "Kathy, why aren't you saying anything?" Claire's voice came through, timidly. "Did Larry give you a hard time when you got home yesterday?" I knew this would happen. Claire's voice gradually filled with indignation. "He doesn't even treat you like Mrs. Johnson. And you're always so naive, defending him. Do you really think he's some good guy, a perfect gentleman? Kathy, a rich man like him, who knows how many women he has on the side. Kathy, why don't you just divorce him? Edward loves you so much. You'll only be happy if you marry him. Besides, Edward's rich now too. He told me he'd take care of the Brown family's problems." Claire. I couldn't listen anymore and cut her off with a frown. "I've told you many times, I married Larry willingly. And he's very good to me, he's always been good to me. I've never had a single thought of betraying him. But you don't love him, Kathy. You can't waste your whole life on a man you don't love." Claire's voice was strangely grating. I stared blankly at the pattern on the floor, ripples of uncertainty spreading through my heart. Do I really not love Larry? We're all human. After being married to him for this long, I found I couldn't give a definitive no anymore. Claire, Larry is my husband. And I married him willingly back then. If you still consider me a good friend, please don't ever say things like this again. After that day, Claire didn't call me again, but she did send me a text apologizing. Edward, too, went completely silent. I figured Claire must have passed on my message, and he was trying to move on. My relationship with Larry went back to normal. But I didn't ask him where he had been for that month, or why he hadn't called. Time flew by, and soon it was my birthday. Every year, Larry would throw a huge party for me. To be honest, I'm not a fan of these big, lavish events. I'd much rather stay home with him and quietly eat a bowl of longevity noodles. But Larry always gets his way, so I just go along with it. I still sent an invitation to Claire. I don't have many friends. Before I returned to the Brown family, I was often bullied because I was illegitimate. Claire and her family lived next door. She and her mom often took care of my mother and me. Claire even got into fights with people who made fun of me. I've always cherished that friendship. After I married Larry, I helped Claire's family get a new house. Claire's current job is also thanks to me asking Larry to make a special exception and hire her. Maybe because I've experienced so little kindness in my life, I truly value every bit of it. But I never expected this. Just a few days ago, Claire had solemnly promised me that as a good friend, she would respect all my decisions. But at my birthday party, she showed up with Edward. When Edward appeared, dressed in an incredibly expensive custom-made suit and wearing a watch worth 8 figures, he immediately caught everyone's attention. As he walked towards me with a beautifully wrapped gift, I noticed the brooch he was wearing. It was almost identical to the one Larry had ripped off my chest and thrown in the trash that day. A fish playing among lotus leaves. The green lotus leaf, the golden fish, a picture of romantic entanglement. The brooch didn't match his outfit at all. So, he was doing it on purpose. And his intention was obvious. "Kathy, happy birthday." Edward walked straight up to me, his eyes fixed on me. He had a gentle smile, and he handed me the gift. I didn't look at him. I just calmly looked at Claire. Claire had also dressed up for the occasion. She looked beautiful, and her makeup suited her perfectly. At first, she didn't dare to meet my gaze. But after a few seconds, she bit her lip and looked up, a look of anguish on her face. "Kathy, even if you blame me, even if you hate me, I'll accept it." I just couldn't help it. I couldn't just stand by and watch two soulmates miss their chance. "You can hit me, you can yell at me, I'll take it all. But I'm begging you, please don't let Edward's devotion go to waste. He can't live without you." The previously lively banquet hall fell silent in an instant. All eyes turned towards us. And I, instinctively, turned to look at Larry. When our eyes met, Larry's expression seemed to darken for a moment. But he quickly put down his wine glass and turned to leave. I was about to go after him when Edward suddenly spoke. "Claire, we're just here to celebrate Kathy's birthday today. Don't say things you shouldn't." "Edward." Claire's eyes reddened. "How is that something I shouldn't say? You and Kathy were each other's first love. I saw how much you loved each other back then." Edward slowly lowered his gaze, his voice a little hoarse. "Let's not talk about the past." "But Edward, if I don't say anything, are you just going to watch Kathy suffer for the rest of her life?" "Suffer." Edward repeated the word, his face instantly turning pale. "It's my fault. I'm the one who hurt Kathy." "Edward." Claire reached out to steady him, worried, but he pushed her away. She seemed a little disappointed and lowered her head, her eyes red. Looking at Claire's expression, I suddenly understood. "Claire, you know what happened between me and Edward was years ago. You also know I'm married, that I have a husband. I remember I made it very clear to you last time, and you even texted me promising you wouldn't do this again. But today, you used the invitation I gave you to bring him here. What's your game? Are you really looking out for me, or do you just not want to see me happy?" Claire's eyes widened in shock. "Kathy, no, that's not what I meant. I've never been an aggressive person. Larry often says I'm simple-minded and naive. I don't sweat the small stuff, and I usually don't mind losing out a little. But I think something changed in my friendship with Claire after I married Larry. It just took me too long to realize it. Kathy, don't blame Claire. I'm the one who begged her. I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday." Edward looked at me, his eyes filled with a broken, forced smile. He raised his hand and gently touched the fish on his brooch. "Because I remember I promised you I'd spend every birthday with you from now on." "Edward." I looked back, but Larry was already gone. I interrupted him, my heart racing with anxiety. "First, please call me Kathy or Mrs. Johnson. Second, I remember I also told you last time that it's all in the past, and you should move on. Third, do you really think I can have a happy birthday after you've pulled a stunt like this? I looked at Edward, a mix of complex and bitter emotions swirling inside me. When we were young, I really did like him, a lot. But then, fate intervened, and we had to break up. I still hoped he would have a good life. But after all this, I just felt tired and annoyed. Because if I were in Edward's shoes, I wouldn't have just shown up and disrupted Kathy's life. I wouldn't have embarrassed her in front of her husband and everyone else. Even if I loved her deeply, I would have waited for her to be single again. Not when everyone knows she's Mrs. Johnson, making people think she's still hung up on her ex. By the time I ran out, Larry's car was already pulling away. The driver must have seen me and hit the brakes for a second, but then the car sped off. I stood there, stunned, until the car was just a black dot in the distance, then disappeared completely. That's when I realized my heart felt like a huge, empty hole. Even a shallow breath sent a sharp, nerve-like pain through me. I took out my phone and dialed Larry's number, but he didn't answer. The second time I called, it went straight to voicemail. When the automated message started, my tears suddenly started to fall. Claire had once asked me if I was wasting my life by marrying a man I didn't love. But honestly, after more than 3 years of being together day in and day out, did I really not have any feelings for him? Maybe I was just scared. Because I never dared to look deep into his heart to see if I was there, if he had even the slightest bit of affection for me. Maybe it's because, from the very beginning, I felt like I wasn't good enough. An illegitimate daughter like me. An ordinary girl with no special talents or ambitions. Besides a pretty face, I was completely average. Why would he like me? Besides, in his world, beauty is the least rare commodity. I went home, feeling dejected. The maids had prepared dinner, but I had no appetite. I only had a little soup. But the fish soup, which I usually love, tasted incredibly fishy and unpleasant. I couldn't hold it in and threw it all up. The house instantly descended into chaos. The maids were busy cleaning up the mess and trying to call a doctor. I waved them off. I'm fine, I'll be okay after some sleep. But ma'am, Mr. Johnson will be angry with us if he finds out. It's okay, I'll tell him. I stood up, a suspicion slowly forming in my mind. That night, Larry didn't use a condom twice. Although he had someone bring over the morning after pill the next day, no birth control is 100% effective. What if I was pregnant? The thought sent me straight upstairs to take a test. Sure enough, 2 clear lines appeared on the test strip. I slowly sat down on the sofa, a wave of bittersweet emotions washing over me. Larry never wanted to have children with me. In all the time we'd been married, those were the only 2 times he lost control and didn't use a condom. At the time, I offered to take the pill myself, but he was still cautious enough to have his assistant, Adam, bring it over. It was clear he had no intention of me getting pregnant. So, if he found out I was pregnant, how would he react? Suddenly, I couldn't bear the thought of him telling me, "Kathy, get rid of it. I won't let you have my child." As tears streamed down my face, my phone suddenly buzzed. Like a drowning person grabbing a lifeline, I snatched it up. But it wasn't Larry. The call was from Charles Brown. "Kathy, you ungrateful, backstabbing brat. I had you marry Larry to save the Brown family, not to let him swallow it whole. Have you forgotten your last name is Brown, that you have brown blood in your veins?" Charles Brown was furious, smashing things in a rage while he yelled at me. But after the initial shock, I quickly calmed down. I have no feelings for the Brown family, and even less for my biological father, Charles Brown. He lied to my mom her whole life, ruined her life. And in his eyes, I was never a daughter, not even a person. What did it matter to me if the Brown family existed or was destroyed? My only regret is that my mom didn't live to see the Brown family's downfall. Speaking of which, I should probably thank Larry. After all, the thought of never having to see Charles Brown and his wife act all high and mighty again filled me with immense satisfaction. But then, thinking of Larry, I couldn't help but feel sad again. He swallowed the Brown family whole. So, does that mean me, the daughter of Charles Brown, with brown blood, am now useless to him? Suddenly, I heard the familiar sound of a car outside the window. I froze for a moment, then shot up and ran to the window. The headlights were bright, illuminating Larry's tall figure. As he walked towards the main house, he habitually glanced up at the master bedroom window on the second floor. I clutched the lace on the curtains, and tears suddenly started streaming down my face. By the time I ran downstairs, a maid was taking off Larry's suit jacket. She smiled and excused herself when she saw me. I stood on the stairs, my eyes still a little swollen from crying. Larry glanced at me, his brow furrowed slightly. He was about to say something, but I didn't care. I ran down the rest of the stairs and threw myself into his arms. Larry seemed a little taken aback, but he quickly wrapped his arms around me. The maid said you threw up and wouldn't see a doctor. Kathy, you're a grown woman. Still throwing tantrums like a child? I shook my head violently, burying my face in his chest and letting my tears soak his shirt. I just wasn't feeling well. I'll be fine after some sleep. I hugged his waist tightly, refusing to let go. Honey, can you carry me back to our room? Larry carried me upstairs. The moment we were inside the room, I tilted my head up and kissed him. My kiss was urgent and passionate, my tongue tracing his thin lips, our mouths tangling together. Larry was surprised by my forwardness, but he quickly became aroused. Honey, let's take a shower, I want to be with you. I stood barefoot on his feet, looking into his slightly flushed eyes, my own filled with a bold desire. Larry's Adam's apple bobbed. In an instant, his eyes were filled with lust. Warm water showered down on us, completely enveloping us. I stood on my tiptoes, kissing him all the way down. Larry's long fingers threaded through my wet black hair, clenching and then releasing. My roots ached slightly. I couldn't help but look up at him with a hurt expression. Larry's wet fingers gently caressed my cheek. Kathy. He whispered my name, his voice deep and raspy. I didn't answer, just slowly lowered my wet lashes. Larry bent down and picked me up. My long, wet hair cascaded down, dripping water all over the floor, soaking the bedsheets. When Larry was fully satisfied, he was always in an exceptionally good mood. I pestered him with a question. Ava said she wants to secretly have a baby for Mr. Davis. Ava was Lucas Davis's mistress, and he doted on her. Do you think Mr. Davis would be happy or angry? What would you do if someone had your baby? Larry stubbed out his post-sex cigarette, his eyes as sharp as a blade. The baby's birthday would be her mother's death day. Kathy, don't ask me such stupid questions again. You know my temper. That kind of stupid thing would never happen to me. Of course I knew Larry's temper. That's why I only asked that stupid question once. Larry didn't want a child. But I did. I wanted the baby, and I didn't want to die. So I had to leave. I was just like my mother. She could have gotten rid of me, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. The years we spent together, just the two of us, were simple and even difficult, but we were truly happy. It was because she gave me 100% of her love that I didn't grow up to be a dark, twisted person. I'm so grateful to her for giving me life and strength. The next time Larry went on a business trip, on a beautiful, sunny afternoon, I left the home I had lived in for 3 years. Just like any other time I went out for afternoon tea. I really enjoyed the kept women get-togethers with Ava and the girls. I never looked down on them. But now, I knew I would never be able to attend one of those gatherings again. When Larry received the news that Kathy hadn't come home all night, he immediately cut the meeting short and booked the earliest flight back. When he landed in the capital, he saw a news report. Edward was being interviewed. He wasn't wearing that annoying brooch, but he had on an equally irritating fish-shaped tie clip. On camera, he smiled warmly, his eyes full of deep affection. Regarding my personal life, I would ask that you please not bring it up again in the future. I have someone I love, very, very much. I will wait for her forever. Yes, I will wait for her endlessly. As he spoke, he gently touched the tie clip, the deep emotion in his eyes moving all the female reporters present. What if, and I'm just saying what if, you wait your whole life and she never comes back? Edward suddenly smiled at the camera. I don't believe fate would be so cruel to me. Besides, I have a feeling there will be good news soon. Everyone can look forward to it. Larry coldly switched off the video. He dialed the number he knew by heart one more time, but it was still unreachable. Larry gripped his phone tightly, a sharp, suffocating pain spreading through his chest. He thought of the brooch she had so happily worn that day. A fish playing among the lotus leaves. Ha! Kathy and Edward. That small, run-down courtyard. The little fish and lotus leaves in the water tank. Those innocent yet intoxicating youthful days. A young couple's unforgettable first love. Even the slightest memory was a piercing pain, a sharp sting of jealousy. It was after Edward returned to the capital, successful, that things started to subtly change. Kathy became exceptionally careful, always trying to please him. But the more she acted this way, the more it hurt him. That day in the car, he watched her swallow her pride and take off her dress. They had sex, but he felt no pleasure. He didn't know what Kathy and Edward had talked about, but just knowing they had met was unbearable. He had become narrow-minded, even secretly sabotaging Edward's company several times out of spite. On Kathy's birthday, Edward and Claire's little act had humiliated him completely. But when he heard from the maid that she was sick and had thrown up, his heart softened, and he rushed back immediately. That night, Kathy was incredibly passionate and forward. He once again fell into the web of tenderness she had woven, completely lost. He even deceived himself, thinking that as long as she was by his side, it would be okay. Edward, first love, none of it mattered. But he never expected her to just leave without a word. Was it because of Edward? So, in the end, can anyone ever really escape their first love? Larry never thought he would be so childishly jealous of another man. Besides appearing in Kathy's life earlier, what did Edward have that he didn't? A weak-looking pretty boy like him. A fool who would trip and fall while chasing a car. Could he make Kathy happy? But he was the first man Kathy had ever deeply loved. Kathy's first kiss was his. Kathy's first flutter of her heart was for him. Larry had never felt so defeated. For a moment, he was so disheartened he felt hopeless. He couldn't win. He couldn't compete with the most intense, unforgettable feeling a girl experiences in her most innocent and beautiful years. By the time Edward found me, I was 4 months pregnant. My belly had a slight curve, and I had put on a little weight. He was clearly surprised, but he quickly composed himself. Kathy, is this his child? I didn't deny it. Edward's brows furrowed, then smoothed out again. Kathy, I don't mind. I can love him as my own. I couldn't help but laugh. But I mind. Kathy? Edward, it's been over between us for a long time. I looked at him calmly, my heart completely still. I asked you back then, I asked you to run away with me, to leave this place and go far away. But you didn't agree. Kathy, I was broke back then, I had my difficulties, you know that. Yes, I know you had your difficulties, so I never held it against you. I smiled at him, the same kind of smile Larry always said was naive, the kind of smile that would get you sold and you'd still be happily counting the money. I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Edward, I let go of the past when I married Larry. You should let go too. And I hope this is the last time we see each other. Let's not ruin the memories we had when we were young. Let's just leave it at that. Edward was silent for a long time. Just as I was about to close the door, he suddenly spoke. Kathy, I'm so sorry for causing you so much trouble. But, I still want to ask you, have you fallen in love with him? I didn't hesitate for long. I nodded gently. Yes, I don't know when, but I know I love him very much. Edward's eyes instantly turned red, but he fought back the tears. Kathy, don't have anything to do with Claire anymore. I wasn't surprised that Edward would say that. A smart man like him must have noticed that Claire had feelings for him. There's something else I found out by chance a few days ago. Claire has a close colleague at work. That woman has had a crush on Larry for years. Claire used her connection with you to create a few opportunities for them to meet. For some reason, she also deliberately spread some rumors about them. But Larry is very careful. He dealt with it quickly and quietly. You probably never even heard about it. Edward gave a bitter smile. He really is better than me. At least, he's never let you suffer any injustice. I stood there, stunned, for a long time. I didn't understand why Claire would do such a thing. Maybe it was out of jealousy that I married Larry and became the esteemed Mrs. Johnson. An ordinary person who was once in her world had suddenly soared to new heights. Or maybe, it was simply because she liked Edward and couldn't bear to see him heartbroken, so she wanted to help us get back together. But whatever the reason, it was something I couldn't comprehend. I thought blankly, this friendship that began in our youth was really and truly over. When I was 5 months pregnant, Ava was getting married. From kept woman to wife, she was on top of the world. She joyfully invited me to her bachelorette party, insisting I had to be there. I couldn't say no, so I agreed. After hanging up, I felt a wave of sadness. It had been 2.5 months since I left, and Larry hadn't tried to find me. Not once. I resisted the urge to ask about him, so I had no idea if he had already found someone new. With the Brown family gone, getting a divorce would be easy. I wasn't greedy, I would sign the papers whether he gave me money or not. But Larry hadn't asked me to come back and file for divorce either. The night before I returned to the capital, I dreamed of Larry again. But in the dream, he was cold and distant, refusing to talk to me. At the very end, he yelled at me. Kathy, you're the dumbest woman I've ever met. I didn't know why he was yelling at me. I woke up feeling incredibly wronged. Then, Claire suddenly called me from someone else's phone. She was sobbing uncontrollably, but in the end, I didn't say anything and just quietly hung up. Larry had fired Claire. She also received a letter from his company's legal department. Claire's father had recently become addicted to gambling and lost their new house. They had moved back to their old place. Thankfully, Claire's mother had passed away last year and didn't have to witness this mess. I sat in a daze for a while, then remembered what Edward had said. Suddenly, something clicked. Edward said Claire had someone spread rumors about Larry and that female colleague. So, that day when I asked Larry what he would do if someone secretly had his child, was he thinking I had heard those rumors? A bitter, sour feeling spread through my chest. In all the years I've been married to him, I know how he's treated me. But it seems like I never really tried to trust him. To believe that maybe, just maybe, he cared about me a little. Ava's bachelorette party was incredibly lavish and lively. She hired nearly 100 male models, and even I, the pregnant one, was assigned 5. I have a gift for you later, honey. Enjoy. I sat facing the 5 models, feeling a little awkward. Ava was flitting around like a beautiful little bird, busy as a bee, completely forgetting that she was also pregnant. Watching her, I couldn't help but smile. Lucas Davis had been a widower for years. Ava wasn't a mistress or a side piece. Now that they were finally making it official, I was genuinely happy for her. But my happiness lasted only a second before it vanished. A very boyish young man bravely sat down next to me. Ma'am, would you like a cupcake? I heard that when ladies are expecting, they get hungry easily. I was indeed hungry. Looking at the cupcake in front of me, I almost drooled. But just then, the door was suddenly pushed open from the outside with a loud bang. I jumped, and when I looked up, I saw Larry. He was wearing a black business suit and glasses. His face was expressionless, but he radiated a murderous aura. The young models were terrified and scrambled to their feet, scattering in all directions. I grabbed my purse to cover my pregnant belly, also trying to escape. But Larry had already strode over to me. He looked down at me, his voice so cold it could freeze me solid. "Kathy. In all the years we've been married, when have I ever left you wanting? Ordering this many men, are you overestimating yourself, or just trying to humiliate me?" I kept my head down like a quail, not daring to look at him. I mumbled. "I didn't order them. Ava insisted on giving them to me." Larry scoffed. "So Ava also made you drool just now?" I glanced up at him, then quickly looked down again, feeling guilty. I was hungry, I was drooling over the cupcake. "Don't pretend. You don't even like cake." "I started liking it after I got pregnant." The words were barely out of my mouth before I frantically covered it. Larry's expression changed instantly. "Kathy." I looked up at him, feeling wronged. "Larry, don't yell so loud. The baby just kicked me." On the way back, Larry was stone-faced and refused to say a word to me. But when the car stopped, he personally carried me out. "I can walk myself," I whispered, but my heart was soaring with joy. I buried my face in his chest, inhaling his scent. It was clean, without any trace of smoke or perfume. I loved it, I was almost addicted to it. "I don't believe a word you say." Larry was gruff, but he gently placed me on the sofa. I loved to look pretty, so I had worn semi-high heels to match my dress. Larry frowned and knelt down to take them off for me. "No more heels during your pregnancy." "Okay. There's food in the kitchen. Want some soup first?" But I shook my head. "Larry, I have something to tell you." He looked down, carefully massaging my ankles. "Go on." "I took all the pills Adam brought that day." "You saw me. So, this pregnancy really wasn't on purpose." "I don't know how it happened." Larry stopped what he was doing. He looked up at me, his gaze calm and gentle. "The pills Adam brought weren't birth control. They were just regular vitamins. Kathy, we've been married for 3.5 years. When have I ever made you take that kind of garbage?" I froze, tears welling up in my eyes. "Why?" "No reason. I just couldn't bear it." His voice was soft, his tone light. But his words hit me right in the heart, and tears started streaming down my face. "Larry." I threw myself into his arms. "So that night, when you said the baby's birthday would be her mother's death day, you weren't talking about me, were you?" Larry was taken aback for a moment, then he couldn't help but laugh. "Kathy, you're my wife. How could I ever say something like that to you? I thought Claire had been feeding you nonsense again." "Larry, am I really stupid?" I buried my face in his chest, sobbing uncontrollably. He seemed helpless against my tears, all his anger gone. He could only patiently comfort me, then leaned down to kiss me. "It's okay. You're not a lost cause. Honey, why didn't you look for me when I left? You were going to get back with your first love. It would have been rude of me to show up." I wasn't. I panicked. "Larry, I never had any intention of getting back with him. Not since the day I married you, not even for a second." Larry seemed unconvinced. I grew even more anxious. "You don't believe me? What will it take for you to believe me?" "Simple." Larry leaned down, our eyes meeting. "Kathy, just say you love me, and I'll believe you." I stared at him, tears streaming down my face. "Larry, I love you." "Kathy, say it louder, so the baby can hear that you were the one who confessed first." I couldn't help but laugh through my tears, shouting. "Larry, I love you." Kathy loves Larry, Kathy loves Larry more than anything. "I love you too." Larry held me gently, then pressed his face against my slightly swollen belly. He whispered something so quietly, he thought I didn't hear it. "But Kathy, I love you more." When I was 6 months pregnant, Larry had a very important project that required him to be there in person. I volunteered to go with him to England. This was my first time abroad. Larry was worried about me, so he booked the best first-class seats. He even had his team revise the itinerary to a much slower pace. In his free time, he would take me sightseeing. But honestly, I wasn't very interested in the famous landmarks. I preferred to sit in a cafe on the street and watch the blonde, blue-eyed guys walk by. At first, Larry wouldn't let me have ice cream. I threw a tantrum and pretended to give him the cold shoulder for a whole afternoon. Larry couldn't do anything about it, so the next morning he bought me an ice cream cone. I sat on a park bench, licking the sweet ice cream, feeling incredibly happy. Larry sat next to me, holding my coat and bag, and occasionally taking out a wet wipe to clean my hands. I looked at the mixture of helplessness and affection in his eyes and felt like I was dreaming. I offered him the half-eaten ice cream. "Honey, try it. It's really good." Larry doesn't eat sweets. But he took a bite from my hand anyway. "Not bad." I smiled even wider and continued eating. Larry looked at me and suddenly asked, "Kathy, you said you love me. When did that start?" I paused for a moment, and a memory from long ago came to mind. It was before I married him, before Edward and I broke up. Edward took me to his college classmate's birthday party. The guy was from a wealthy family and had invited a lot of friends from similar backgrounds. I felt completely out of place. The way they looked at me was like they were looking at a beautiful but cheap vase. I excused myself to go to the restroom to get some air. But I overheard some girls talking about me by the sinks. What was Edward thinking, bringing an illegitimate daughter to a party? Look at what she's wearing. It's all fake, right? She's pretty, but she has no class. Edward must be out of his mind. I was sad, but not heartbroken. I had gotten used to it over the years. I just didn't want to embarrass Edward. He brought me here to meet some friends and fit into his circle. I couldn't let him down. I was about to push the door open when I heard a series of gasps from outside. Then, a deep, powerful male voice. "Sorry, my hand slipped." The voice was so beautiful it was like music to my ears. I peeked through the crack in the door and saw a tall man. He was wearing a dark suit, with handsome, sharp features and an intimidating presence. The girls in front of him were all drenched in wine, looking utterly miserable. "Mr. Johnson." They clearly knew him, but they were too scared to say anything. Larry smiled faintly, his voice even gentler. "How much?" "I'll pay for it." "You're too kind, Mr. Johnson." The girls fled in a panic. Larry watched them go, a flicker of coldness in his eyes. Then, he turned and his gaze fell on the stall door I was hiding behind. "Come out." I jumped, thinking I had been caught eavesdropping. I reluctantly came out, my head down, not daring to look at him. "Look up." His voice was still gentle, but it had an undeniable authority. I had no choice but to lift my head. Our eyes met, and my heart skipped a beat. "Kathy, remember my name." "I'm Larry," he said, then turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding. Later, I found out that Larry hadn't planned on going to that party. It was a last-minute decision. It was as if he had gone there specifically for me. And then, I married him. I asked him about that incident. He said he had forgotten. But I knew he hadn't. He just didn't want me to know that he had liked me for a very, very long time. I bit into my ice cream and giggled to myself for a while before answering his question. "A long, long time ago." "How long?" "It's a secret." He playfully tapped my nose. "You little miser." I smiled and leaned my head on his shoulder, watching the pigeons fly up and down in the distance, feeling a sense of peace and contentment. Yes, a long, long time ago. Before I even knew what love was, I had already fallen in love with him. The first time Larry saw Kathy, she was only 16. She was thin and small, wearing a faded school uniform. Her hair was in a high ponytail, and her face was as pure as a white magnolia. She was cornered in an alley. The lead girl was half a head taller than her, with a look of arrogance and aggression. Kathy, your mom is a homewrecker, and so are you. I'm warning you, stay away from Edward, or I'll beat you to death. Kathy stubbornly bit her lip, silent. Her eyes were bright, like they were filled with starlight. Oh, still not convinced? The girl raised her hand to hit her. Larry frowned and got out of the car. Stop. His voice wasn't loud, but it made everyone freeze. The girls were stunned when they saw him. Larry walked over to Kathy, took off his suit jacket, and draped it over her shoulders. Go home. His voice was gentle, as if he were comforting a little sister who had been wronged. Kathy looked up at him, a flash of awe in her eyes. Then, she nodded and ran off. Larry watched her frail figure disappear, a strange pang in his heart. He had someone look into Kathy. He learned about her background and her relationship with Edward. He was a little displeased, but he told himself she was still young and didn't know any better. He could wait. And wait he did, for several years. He watched her fall in love with Edward. He watched her get taken away by the Brown family. He watched her being delivered to his bed. He thought he would be furious. But when she was beneath him, crying and calling him honey, all his anger vanished. He just wanted to absorb her into his very being and never let go. He thought he would hate Edward. But when he saw Edward fall while chasing the car, he actually felt a little sorry for him. Because he knew that this man would never have another chance. Kathy was his. He had decided that when she was 16. This life, the next life, and the life after that, she would be his. Sometimes he would get jealous. Jealous that Edward had been a part of Kathy's teenage years. Jealous that they had so many beautiful memories together. But he was also grateful. Grateful that Kathy was his in the end. He would spend a lifetime making up for the love she had missed out on, making her the happiest woman in the world. Because she deserved it. After the baby was born, I had a bit of postpartum depression. Larry canceled all his work to be with me. He became more professional than the maternity nurse. Changing diapers, feeding, burping, he was an expert at everything. Sometimes I would watch his clumsy yet serious efforts and couldn't help but laugh. He took very good care of me, but I was still feeling down. One night, I was holding the baby and feeding her. As I was feeding her, tears started to fall. Honey, am I useless? I can't even take care of our baby. Larry came over and took the baby from my arms. He placed her in the crib and covered her with a small blanket. Then, he sat next to me and pulled me into his arms. Silly, you're doing great. You're the bravest, strongest mom I've ever seen. I buried my face in his chest and cried even harder. But I'm still so sad. I know. He gently patted my back, his voice as soft as if he were comforting a child. It's okay, this will all pass. I'll always be with you, I'm not going anywhere. His words were like a shot of adrenaline. I instantly felt at ease. I hugged him, and slowly, my crying subsided. Honey, thank you. Silly, what are you thanking me for? He leaned down and kissed me, a smile in his voice. You're my wife. Who else would I dote on? Yes, I am his wife. He is my husband. And we have a lovely child. We are a happy family. What could be more important than that? My postpartum depression slowly got better with Larry's love and support. The baby grew day by day. She started to smile, to crawl, to say dada and mama. Larry was a complete sucker for his daughter. Whenever she was even a little bit fussy, he would give in to her every demand. Sometimes I would get jealous. He would pull me into his arms and sweet-talk me. Honey, you're the big one, she's the little one. Of course I love you more. I knew he was just trying to appease me, but I loved it. After all, I'm the wife he loves the most. Sometimes, I wonder what my life would be like if I hadn't married him. Maybe I would have married Edward and had children. Lived a simple but happy life. But that's just a maybe. The reality is, I married Larry. I love him, and he loves me. And we have a lovely daughter. I am very happy and content. That's enough. As for the past, let it be the past. You always have to look forward. Don't you? When our daughter was 3, I got pregnant again. This time it was a boy. Larry was overjoyed and treated me like a national treasure. He was terrified I would trip or fall. Sometimes I thought he was being too overprotective. Honey, I'm not that fragile. No, you're 2 people now. You have to be careful. I couldn't win against him, so I just let him be. After our son was born, Larry's daughter first attitude didn't change a bit. It was still daughter first, wife second, son third. Sometimes our son would complain to me. Mommy, Daddy doesn't love me. I would stroke his little head and comfort him. Of course he does. Daddy loves you very much. He just loves your sister and your mommy more. Our son would nod, seeming to understand. Then he would run off to play with his sister. Watching them together, so close and loving, warmed my heart. The greatest happiness in my life has been marrying Larry and having these 2 wonderful children. I am so grateful to heaven for giving me such a good husband and such wonderful children. I will spend my whole life loving them and protecting them. Forever. Many years later, Larry and I are old. Our hair is white, our teeth have fallen out, and we walk with a wobble. But we are still very much in love. Every day, we hold hands and walk in the park. We watch the sunset and talk about the fun things we did when we were young. Our children are very filial and often come to visit us. Our grandchildren are also adorable, chattering around us. Sometimes I think, this life has been truly worth it. One day, Larry suddenly asked me, "Honey, if there's a next life, would you still marry me?" I nodded without a second thought. Of course. Why? Because you're Larry. He smiled, the wrinkles on his face smoothing out. Yes, I'm Larry. The Larry who has loved you for a lifetime. I squeezed his hand, my heart warm. Yes, he is the one who has loved me for a lifetime. And I am the Kathy who has loved him for a lifetime. We are a match made in heaven, destined to be together. Whether it's for one lifetime or for all of eternity. We will be together. Never to be separated.